Hey there, YouTube. It's Bobi, aka Paginator, and I thought I'd take a minute today to talk to you about what I've been reading lately. So I realized that when I did my TBR or deck of TBR for September, I neglected to mention the books that I had read in August, and I am going to take a minute to do that, as well as some of the books that I've been reading thus far in September. So far, September has been a way better reading month for me than August was, and I'm liking where this is headed. Even though I'm doing most of my reading on the weekends due to grad school and teaching and all that stuff. But anyway, we'll get to it. So in August, one of my deck of TBR reads was Dangerous Alliance and Ostentatious Romance by Janique Cohen. This was indeed an ostentatious romance. By that meaning Austen-inspired, a romantic story with mystery and intrigue. It was definitely a great read, and it was super fun to just pretend I was in Jane Austen land. And yeah. So I think I ended up giving this book 4.5 or 5 stars. The next book I had to read for my August TBR was House of Dragons by Jessica Cluess. I don't have a copy here to hold up for you because I took it to the school and one of my students has currently got it checked out and hopefully they're enjoying it. That was about 5 teenagers who were chosen to compete for their clan or home to become the next emperor, and they bring their dragons with them, and unexpected things happen, and that's about all I can tell you. But I will say it is my absolute favorite book that I read this entire summer. 5 stars all the way. Very good. Definitely worth reading. Once again, that's House of Dragons by Jessica Cluess. Another August TBR was Head Over Heels, and that was by Hannah Orenstein. I think first name was Hannah. Anyway, it was about a female gymnast who was unable to make it to the Olympics and then later came back as a coach. And while she's coaching a young gymnast, this scandal with the abuse of gymnasts, both the sexual abuse and physical and mental abuse, came out. And I have to say I did not like that book, and the reason I'm not holding it up for you is because I put it in my little free library that I have outside my house for people to come and read, because I thought maybe someone will enjoy this more than I will. I just felt like it was just too much for me, and I'll explain what I mean. A good example of the too muchness, our main male and female leads finally decide that they're attracted to each other and admit that to each other, and then immediately they have oral sex. I'm like, whoa. Is that like, I'm sorry, that just seems like too much for me. I got triggered in all kinds of ways with my anxiety and stuff, and it's just, no. As far as the story itself involving the gymnastics aspect, I felt like that was well done and well represented. I'm not a gymnast myself, but I did used to take gymnastics classes and there were some gymnastics technical terms that were used correctly that I remember, and that kind of stuff. It was the sexual content that just really bothered me, and sometimes it doesn't bother me in some books, but for some reason that one did, and I think that it's fine to have differing opinions about different books. So if you love that book, I am very glad that you enjoyed it. It just wasn't something that I liked. Also in August, I was supposed to read Spinning Silver by Naomi Novik. I really enjoyed this one. It had some creepy, like, dark, almost Labyrinth, Goblin King-like vibes, in addition to this Rumpelstiltskin-y kind of retelling, and it was very winter feeling, and just, but also really well done. And I found myself wanting to go back and reread Uprooted because I love this so much, and Uprooted, which is by the same author, I didn't love as much, and now I'm going, okay, did I give it a fair chance, or was it just different books by the same author have different reactions? Anyway, really loved this one. I would highly recommend it if you're looking for a high fantasy fairy tale retelling. And lastly, in the month of August, I was supposed to read Crown of Feathers by Nikki Palpretto, but I got stuck about 10 chapters in, I want to say. Not very far, anyway. And I let myself get sidetracked with other books. So I'm going to come back to that book later, because I do still want to give it a fair shot. When I did my deck of TBR for September, I chose 4 books and then said that I would finish Crown of Feathers, and as I mentioned, I've stepped away from that book for right now. But for September reads, the first one that I picked up was Alice, and this was a mystery. Now this book is creepy, creepy, creepy. Like, yikes. So we follow Alice and Hatcher, who are patients in a mental institution. Their rooms are next to one another, and through a tiny hole in the wall they can communicate. Hatcher is able to sense that a Jabberwocky is near, and he feels when the Jabberwocky is loose. And during an event that causes the mental institution to be burned to the ground, Hatcher and Alice are able to escape, and together they try to take on some of the crime lords in their town, which include the Caterpillar, the White Rabbit, or this, I think they just call him Rabbit, and some of the other characters that we know from Alice in Wonderland in this very twisted situation. Now this is a series. I don't have the other books in the series, but I'm gonna look into getting those when my book budget allows me to do so, because when I am in need of a creepy read, I definitely am going to want to come back to this author. So if you're into that creepy, twisted, weird stuff, check out Alice by Christina Henry. Up next, we have a couple of books that aren't on my TBR list officially for the month of September, but that's okay because I'm ahead of schedule. So I read a digital copy of Where I End and You Begin. I printed this picture out to do an Instagram thing and hung onto it for this video. This book is really funny. It is the best body switching book, movie, story of any kind that has body swapping in it that I have ever encountered. We have 2 teenage characters. We have a boy and a girl, and they don't like each other. They are kind of friends of friends and know of each other, but by some strange freak accident they body swap, and it's a thing where it happens every day. Like at a certain time in the morning they swap bodies while she is asleep and he's wide awake due to his insomnia, and they stay that way until sometime in the later afternoon, and things just crazy things happen. We have some representation for LGBTQ characters in this, as well as just some really funny like situations that they get themselves into due to the nature of swapping bodies. And we also have some very insightful thoughts into what it means to walk in another person's shoes. So I would highly recommend this. I am going to be getting a physical copy that I found a used copy online for a good price, just so I can have it and hug it when I feel like it, because I've been thinking about these characters for the week that since I read this, that they just keep popping back into my head, and to me that's a sign of a really good book. Another one that was not on my TBR list was this Full Metal Alchemist volumes 1, 2, and 3. I am new to this story, and I've heard a couple of booktubers that I really admire talking about how much they love Full Metal Alchemist. So when I found this copy of the first 3 volumes for a good price online, I ordered it and read it, and it was very intriguing, and I'm definitely wanting to pick up the next in the series to find out what happens to these brothers. Last Sunday, I picked up Clap When You Land by Elizabeth Acevedo because I was in a really bad headspace, and I wanted a book that I knew I could sit down and read in a day or less. And so I grabbed this one because not only is this written in verse, but it's Elizabeth Acevedo, and everything that she's ever written that I've read, it has just been joy for me. So this is about 2 young women. One lives in the Bahamas, in the Dominican Republic, I believe. She lives in the Dominican Republic. Anyway, and one lives in the mainland United States, and they both share a father. They don't know that, They are half sisters, and when the father is killed in a tragic plane crash, they discover that they have this sisterhood, and they have to deal with the death of their father and meeting these new family members in their life. It was very, very intriguing, very interesting story. Loved every minute of it. 5 stars for sure. Next was a September TBR read, The Gilded Ones by Namina Forna. This is a gorgeous book to look at, and I'm always a little bit afraid of gorgeous to look at books, and this further confirms my theory because so many people have rated this super high on Goodreads and just loved it, so I was really excited about that, and there was something about it that I couldn't quite get as engaged into the story as I wanted to be. What it is we have our main character, Decca, who has to be taken to this bloodletting ceremony that all young women do in their society, and if she bleeds red, then they know she's pure, and she can be matched with a husband, and it's a very patriarchal dominated society where women are not as empowered as I would like them to be. And at her ceremony, Decca bleeds gold, and so they know that she is not pure, and they think she's a demon, and she's going to be put to death, basically. But this mysterious woman who Decca calls White Hands comes along and invites her to join the Emperor's new army of these impure girls, these gold-blooded girls, and they're going to fight against the Death Shrieks. I gotta remember if I'm saying that right, because, yes, Death Shrieks. I always want to call them Death Screamers in my head. I don't know why. Weird things. There are some really cool plot twists, and I love the idea of this army of girls, and so that stuff, I did give it 3 stars because there were so many good things like that were just cool ideas. I think where I struggled was some, maybe just the writing style isn't my cup of tea, and there were some things in there that just really bothered me. When a writer talks about 2 characters and they end up falling in love just out of convenience because they're in a few scenes together, that bothers me, and that happened with 2 characters in this book, and I didn't feel like an emotional basis for their relationship. It was just, oh, we're always together, we might as well be in love. That bothered me, and then there were just some little pet peeves that are personal things to me. At one point 2 characters went to hug each other, but then the narrating character was also smiling right in the other person's, looking them in the eyes and smiling at them. How do you do that if you're hugging? I don't get that. So there were just some things like that. Otherwise, very cool story. Someone on Goodreads said that this was appropriate for 13 to 15-year-olds. It's not. I'm sorry. I would maybe let my high schoolers read this. But when you have a book that constantly talks about and uses words like whore and bitch in reference to females, I'm not going to put that in the hands of my middle schoolers. So this book is going to stay here in my house, and it's just going to be something pretty to look at. This next one, though, is going to school with me for my kids to read. This is Punching the Air by Ibi Zoboi and Yusef Salaam. And this is another verse novel. I read this yesterday, in less than a day. It was fantastic. And it is about Amal, who is 16 years old, and he is convicted of a crime that he did not commit. And so he is sentenced to time in a juvenile detention facility. He is an artist, hence the paint swoops. And I have to say, this is a very pleasant texture. So as I was reading, I was holding the book open and just feeling the texture of the paint swoops. That was nice. I don't know why. I just, Anyway, this, one of the authors, Yusef Salaam, is one of the exonerated 5 who were formerly known as the Central Park 5, I believe. There's a documentary about them. They were wrongfully convicted of a crime and exonerated, thank goodness. And so he co-wrote this with Ibi Zoboi, who is the author of American Street and several other books. And it was just very beautifully done. There are a few cuss words in here, but I'm still going to bring it to school because I want my kids to be able to see things can happen to you in the justice system as it is currently, that even if you didn't commit something, you can still get in trouble for it. And it's also just a really beautiful story about coming to peace with the fact that something awful's happened and now I have to do something about it because I can't just wish it away. Yeah. Anyway, enough gushing. We're going to move on. The last book I want to talk to you about today is All Boys Aren't Blue. This is another of my September TBR picks. And the prompt from my deck of TBR was something that has a 4 stars or higher rating on Goodreads. And I picked this one up and read it this morning. And pretty much neglected the cleaning of my kitchen that I was going to do, and the baking of bread I was going to do, and the grading of papers I was going to do, to read this book. So this is about a black queer man, and it's a YA memoir. So it's a lot of his growing up years and things that happened to him as a child and a young adult. And I can sit here as a cisgendered female, white, having lived nowhere in the United States near where he is, like totally different life experience, but yet looking at the stories in this book that I read today, we have so much in common. And I think that that's the point of books like this, that we have to look past all these exterior things and just see that every single person is a person, and we all go through awful, horrible things, and we all go through amazing, beautiful things, and we're here together. That's just what it is. Anyway, I don't want to give too much away about what he went through, but it was a lot about discovering his identity as a black person as well as a queer person, and how those two things work together. And his grandmother, okay, so this is all true story. His grandmother seems like the most amazing, supportive person in the world, and all of his family were fantastic. So yeah, his whole family is just amazing. I'm so glad that he's able to have this amazing, supportive family to get him through hard things. And those of us who are lucky to have supportive parents in our lives know what a blessing that is. And I hope that we don't take that for granted, because not everyone is that lucky. Okay, so as I film this, it's September 13th. It'll probably be a few days later by the time this gets edited and uploaded, just due to schedule and stuff that I need to do. But anyway, I only have technically one other book on my TBR for this month, which is Empress of All Seasons. I do at some point want to come back to A Crown of Feathers. I honestly don't know if it'll be this month or not. When I get sidetracked from a book, I really just feel like I need to set it aside for a while and then come back to it after it's been a while. So yeah, I'm going to need some other books besides just this one to read this month. So I want to read Faith Taking Flight by Julie Murphy, which is a superhero book, and I want to read Blood and Honey, which is a sequel to Serpent and Dove, and Mexican Gothic, and I don't know if I'll even get through the rest of those, because how things go in my life, I could be in a reading slump for the rest of the month. You never know. But anyway, long story short, there's a lot more reading left to be done, and I hope you all are having a wonderful and bookish day. Happy reading. Adios.